G'day and welcome to another episode of Kiwi Car Life. And after the death of Holden in 2021, the New Zealand Police were faced with the challenge of replacing their fleet of trusty VF and ZB Commodores. And what they chose was the Skoda Superb. 4 years later, some of these Skodas are starting to be decommissioned. And so today, we're going to see how they're kitted out, what they're like to drive, and how they hold up after over 250,000 Ks. My friend Jack's owned quite a few ex-police cars that are featured on the channel. He had a 300,000 kilometre Evoque, which won our cheap police car challenge, a 360,000 kilometre SV6 that I compared with a ZB RSV, along with another Evoque and ZB LT that many of you no doubt saw us restore. And just last week, he bought this, one of the very first ex-police Skodas. With the car being located 4 hours away at Turner's in Napier, we all hopped into Campbell's 325,000 kilometre Jaguar XJ6 and hit the motorway. With air suspension, a luxurious leather interior and smooth 240 horsepower V6, we arrived in the Hawke's Bay in style and comfort at dusk, and finally got our first close-up look at an ex-police Skoda. I must say, for 270,000 kilometres, it had held up rather well, as this one was sold on normal Turners, not Turners damaged like most of the older Commodores. They'd cleaned the whole car out, so there wasn't much police paraphernalia to be found. But we did find a battery, a breath tester, a few bolts left over from where the gear plate used to sit, and a custom cup holder, as the actual cup holder slot is repurposed for the light and siren controller. Everything under the engine bay was very shiny, with no leaks anywhere. The interior fabric was in great condition and it started up and drove absolutely perfectly. So we filled up with fuel and cruised all the way back home again. If you're looking to buy an ex-police Skoda Superb, as Jack was, you'll discover that they come in two different flavours. The general duties ones essentially have a Mark 7 Golf GTI drivetrain with 162 kilowatt and front wheel drive. The highway patrol ones like this essentially have a Mark 7 Golf R drivetrain with 206 kilowatt and four-wheel drive. You can tell them apart because the highway patrol ones have these visible exhaust tips, whereas the general duties ones don't. There's maybe a dozen IV hybrid ones rolling around too, but none of them have been decommissioned yet. The vast majority of them are white, blue or silver, but there is a very small number of black, grey and red ones rolling around too. From 2021, when they were first introduced, to 2023, they came on 19-inch wheels and low suspension. But the police found that the big wheels were too fragile and the low ride height proved to be an issue over bumps during pursuits. So from 2023 onwards, they were fitted with smaller 18-inch wheels and jacked up Scout suspension. Around this time, they also started to be equipped with digital gauges, but they're all ambition specification with the base cloth interior. This one is a 2022 ex-highway patrol model with 206 kilowatt and four-wheel drive. Originally, it had the 19s, which it still has, and the low suspension. But according to the service history, at 40,000 kilometres, the high suspension was retrofitted. Speaking of the service history, let's see how this thing has held up over 270,000 Ks. In the last 3 years, this Skoda has needed 30 tyres, 16 services, 12 spark plugs, 12 brake pads, 8 brake rotors, 6 wipers, 3 transmission fluid changes, 3 wheel alignments, 2 pollen filters, 2 air filters, 2 brake fluid changes, 1 battery, 1 accessory belt, 1 WAF and 1 coolant flush. None of that is particularly out of the ordinary, but it has had a few repairs. This car has had 7 alloy wheels, 5 windscreens, all 4 shocks have been replaced, as have the 2 front strut mounts. It's had a new radiator, a new water pump, a new oil cooler, a new oil filter housing and a new driver's seat. But that said, for a car that's done nearly 300,000 Ks, I'd say that it's been extremely reliable. Needing 7 bent wheels and 5 smashed windscreens replaced says more about the dreadful state of our New Zealand roads than it does about Skoda reliability. Certainly compared with the previous Commodores, these are a lot more reliable. So far, outside of crashed ones, no Skodas that I've seen have been decommissioned because of mechanical failure, whereas the ZBs in particular regularly show up on Turners damaged with destroyed transmissions, clicking CVs, misfires, timing chain and electrical issues. But while the ZBs were definitely a bit more expensive to maintain, they were a heck of a lot cheaper to buy. It's generally understood that the New Zealand Police were picking up the VF and ZB base model Commodores for around 30 grand. The civilian version of the Skoda Superb starts out at 70 grand. So even though the police no doubt get a hefty discount, they could previously buy 2 Commodores for every 1 Skoda they can buy today. As this one was a highway patrol vehicle, it was kitted out by Wade Group with 2 aerials on the roof and a transceiver inside. It had a light bar mounted on the roof rails, smaller lights in the front and rear bumpers, boot and grille, all controlled by an SLC in the centre console, powered by a secondary battery in the boot, and a control module mounted on a gear plate attached to the back seats. It would have also had a fire extinguisher in the boot and 2 gun safes, one for a rifle in the boot and a Glock in the passenger footwell. Condition-wise, this one is actually in far better shape than the majority of VF and ZBs that I've seen. The Commodores almost always have scraped up bumpers and massive dents in the doors and guards. This one just had the stuff you'd expect, like a couple of holes in the rear bumper from lights, aerial bases in the roof, and some missing trims inside from radar, radio, and light controllers. The only signs of damage are the yellowing DRLs and missing paint on the front bumper. The rest of the car is actually in pretty remarkable condition, but it can definitely still be better. So let's set to work getting this car washed, polished, and vacuumed before taking it for a drive. I began by giving the exterior a thorough wash, getting into all of the door jambs and panel gaps with a brush, and scrubbing off all the bugs and road spray from years of open road driving. With the car dried off, I then sprayed the whole exterior with mineral terps to break down the tar caked all over the doors and bumpers, before clay barring the paint to remove any final contaminants. With the paint now clean and smooth, but still scratched to oblivion, I broke out my orbital polisher and set to work. Fortunately, as this car is a fairly dark blue, my black car polish worked wonders on the exterior, removing dozens of nasty scratches and swirls and bringing the paint back to a sparkly shine. Arguably what made the biggest difference to the overall condition was a bit of touch-up paint all over. The front was absolutely peppered with stone chips, and there were some significant scratches on the rear bumper too that I filled in with a small brush, before popping on some paint-matched plugs in the rear bumper to cover up the light holes. After completing the exterior by spraying on a wax polish, I moved inside and vacuumed the carpets. Annoyingly, unlike most European carpets that are very easy to clean, the flattened and fairly cheap Skoda carpet was infuriating to vacuum, and I spent ages vigorously brushing all of the dirt out of the fibres. But with it about as good as I could get, I wiped down the plastics and windows, and finally, the ex-police Superb was, on a budget at least, restored back to civilian specification. Driving the Skoda Superb. And no doubt the first question, given this is a police car, is it fast? And the answer is definitely. This is not a slow vehicle, and of course, with it being four-wheel drive, it puts the power down absolutely perfectly. And I gotta say, for a big old wagon, this thing definitely boogies down a back road. It helps that it is on 19-inch wheels with excellent Bridgestone S001 tyres. Certainly compared with the old ZBs and particularly the VFs, this carries its weight significantly better and just feels like such a nimble car to drive. And while the engine is very quiet and doesn't exactly sound particularly inspiring, it certainly delivers absolutely fantastic performance. And you know what? For 272,000 Ks just about, this thing is held up amazingly well. There are zero rattles or clunks to be found anywhere on the inside of this car. It literally feels brand new, which it is in terms of age, but it certainly isn't in terms of Ks. This thing is held up amazingly well. And then the rest of the car, this to me was like peak modern car, where you have an infotainment system with wireless Apple CarPlay, but every control on the inside of this car is physical, and there is only a very limited array of annoying electronic safety features. And so as a result, you can enjoy all of the benefits of a fast, quiet, refined, very fast actually, modern vehicle, but without all of the modern car annoyances. If a cop needs to bash down a road like this to chase after a criminal of some sort, they can do it, and the car will happily respond. This is a great car, not an exciting car by any means. It is just a nice modern vehicle. I don't exactly feel completely engaged and connected with the drive. The steering is pretty good actually, nice fast steering, but not overly communicative, and it weighs nearly 2 tons. It is a big, large family car designed for fitting lots of police and all their gear in it, so it's not exactly a extremely engaging driving experience, but it's fast, it's really well made, it's held up extremely well over time. Oh, that's a lot of power, man. The Commodore enthusiasts are going to be disappointed, but it really is the truth of the matter that these are significantly better than certainly the ZBs. Not as fun as the old VFs if you want to slide around and listen to that glorious V6, but in every other regard, I mean, it's just 10 years newer for starters. Obviously, it is significantly better. So, New Zealand Police, you have made a good choice. This is not an exciting, but is certainly a very superb vehicle. If you'd like to see all of the other cars that I've stored on the channel, then click on the playlist popping up right about now, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next time.